G'day YouTube, this is Warbles on a Lot regarding the gods of the atheists and atheistic prayer techniques. Okay, so first let me add a disclaimer that I spent 10 years as an atheist. I started when I was 11 as a Presbyterian at a Catholic boarding school, and I could see that these people were wrong. And after 10 years, when I had a near-death experience, I became convinced that human beings have a consciousness which exists past the moment of physical death. So I decided to think about things other than atheism. Now, atheism is anti-theism. It's a contraction. Atheists define themselves by what they are not because atheism was a reaction to theism. Theism is the idea that there is a supreme being in the universe, a collective consciousness, a creator force. And the atheists believe there is not such a omnipotent, omnisentient, omnipresent, benevolent, competent creator. The atheists have a strong belief that there is no God. Their choice. They want to live in a godless universe. It's up to them. It's come to my notice that a lot of contemporary people believe they are atheists, but when you question them, it turns out it's not that they have a strong belief in there being no God, it's that they have no belief in any God because they don't consider there's enough data to make a decision. Now, somebody who believes they don't know, according to the dictionary, is an agnostic. A Gnostic, G-N-O-S-T-I-C, is somebody who thinks they know things. In the same way that on a sundial, the gnomon is the bit which casts the shadow which tells the time. So the gnomon knows what time it is. The edge of the gnomon which casts the shadow, which tells the time, that's called the style. So if the style on your gnomon is wrong, you're going to get a completely unrealistic reading. Okay? Agnostics believe in nescience, which is a belief in ignorance, which is a belief that they don't know. Now, a friendly American called Adam Shumpus XXX and I have been kicking this one around for a while, ever since I made a movie called Atheism versus the Scientific Method of Problem Solving. And he thought he was an atheist, but, you know, he's coming around to the conclusion that actually he's an agnostic. And maybe we need a new word, a new term. Maybe we should call people like Adam agnostic-theists. Right? They don't know about God theory being real because they say they have no data and evidence to support it and no data against it, and an absence does not mean anything really. It just means you haven't asked the right questions or you haven't looked at the data, that they hold their mind open. There might be a God theory, there might not be a God theory. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to be really hardline. I'm only talking about the atheists and how they indulge in prayer techniques that they don't like to think about. Let's begin with a hypothetical thought experiment set in the forest. You're probably familiar with it. A lot of philosophers carry on with it. They ask their students to consider a tree falling in the forest when there's nobody present to hear the tree fall. If there's nobody present to hear the tree fall, did it make a sound? And as you can see, I live in a forest. And I'm pretty sure that in the forest there are many, many, many ears other than humans. The forest has ears. There are birds, there are lizards, there are snakes. There are insects, there are spiders. There are either rabbits and squirrels, or there are antechinus and possums. There are kangaroos. Maybe there's monkeys. Could be elephants. But the forest has ears. And anything which disturbs the air will make a sound because the forest has ears, which will perceive the vibration. So, here's my question. If a professed atheist is alone in the forest, nobody within 10 or 15 miles to hear anything that they might say, and the professed atheist is engaged in a construction project, all on their own, terribly dangerous, out in the forest by themselves, if they should hit themselves on the thumb with a hammer, I'm pretty sure, speaking from personal experience, that the atheist is going to vocalise. And when they vocalise, it's probably not going to be very polite, but it will be containing words. My experience is that the average injured atheist doesn't come up with an inarticulate wail of pain. Most of them will incorporate into their complaint against the pain in their thumb some of the religious beliefs which they were exposed to as a child and which they have rejected. So the Christians will invoke Jesus. They will invoke God. The Jews will invoke their God. The Islamics will invoke the beard of the prophet. Various atheists who have come out of different religions tend to revert to whatever religious belief they have rebelled against in moments of sudden, unexpected, painful crisis, which I think is a bit interesting. But even when you get somebody who's never been exposed to a religious system as a child, hurting themselves as an atheist alone in the forest, they vocalise. And my question is, who do they think they're talking to? Are they talking to the panentheistic Gestalt consciousness of the entire universe? The omnipotent, omnisentient, omnipresent, competent and benevolent God theory, which has somehow mysteriously allowed them to hurt themselves? Or, like the spiritualist, the pantheists, who believe in tree spirits and rabbit spirits and fish spirits, who believe that humans move into the spirit world after they finish their material existence, the spiritualists who believe that transient, wandering, mischievous, wicked, evil spirits may fiddle with the synaptic reactions in your motor cortex and cause you to suddenly, mysteriously attack yourself with the hammer for the benefit of the disembodied, mischievous spirits. Are the atheists addressing the disembodied spirits of the forest when they vocalise, often with great eloquence and profanity? Or, if we go a stage more simplistic, are the atheists addressing the spirit which resides inside the hammer? Are they like a Royal Air Force pilot in the Second World War blaming gremlins for the mechanical defects in the aircraft? Are the atheists seriously like a golfer, an atheistic golfer who breaks his club or her club when it makes a bad shot, so the spirit of the club will never ruin their game of golf again? Could it be that the angry, pained atheist believes that there's a malevolent spirit which lives in the hammer, which has taken offence at something the atheist has said or done or failed to do or failed to say, and therefore the hammer has attacked them, motivated by its own inherent spirit? Is the atheist's relationship with the spirit of the hammer as complicated as the Gurkha's relationship with the spirit of the kukri, which comes with a sharpening stone as well as a little fruit peeling everyday string cutting knife, so that you don't have to draw the kukri from its sheath, because the spirit of the kukri has to be fed a meal of blood every time it comes out of the sheath. That's why the spirit of the kukri has a tooth, a sharp little tooth. And the idea is, if you draw this knife and you're a meat-eating warrior, you must feed the spirit of the knife a blood meal every time it comes out of the sheath. Otherwise, when you're in battle, the spirit of the knife may fail to protect you and keep you alive. And if you're sword fighting with one of these forest dwellers' jungle knives, the only thing you've got between your fingers getting cut off and the other person's blade is the tooth that the spirit of the knife uses to catch the assailant's blade. So you have to stay on good terms with the spirit of your kukri. If you're a Gurkha and you're planning on fighting with people, so maybe when the atheist has mashed their thumb with a hammer and they're alone in the wilderness and they're screaming and yelling at the God theory that they don't believe they have, maybe they're not talking to the God of the universe, and maybe they're not talking to the God of the forest or the disembodied spirits. Maybe they're talking to the hammer. I don't know who the atheists think they're talking to. You might have to ask them about it. But you better keep a good sort of smile on your face, because most of them really hate the idea that they have any kind of religious belief at all. They don't even want to admit that having a belief about a God is a religious belief, because they hold their belief without any evidence to support it. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And because we live in a free will universe, if an atheist chooses to believe they live in a godless universe, that's what they see. They don't pay attention to any of the myriad synchronicities and serendipities and benevolent coincidences, which I suspect is the basis for a lot of people's belief that there is in fact an organising principle, a competent, benevolent, omnipotent, omnisentient, omnipresent supreme being throughout the universe. If you choose to live in a godless universe, that's what you get. If you choose to live in a universe of powerless God theories, that's what you get. If you choose to live in a universe where your God theory is powerful, then that's what you get, and that's what you see. Because life is relative and observer-oriented. Here endeth the warble about the gods of the atheists and their prayer techniques when they're alone and they think nobody's looking. Funny, isn't it? The longer you look at it, the funnier life is. Ciao.